All right, everybody, how is it going? Welcome to Gaming Over 30. My name is Deshaun Williams. Here is my co-host Christopher Moncada, and today, Chris, I have a question for you. You knew it was coming. Have you played the new Pokemon?
I have been playing it. I haven't finished, nowhere near close to finishing it, but I'm actually really enjoying it.
And that's kind of my feeling too. I haven't finished it. I have gone far in some cases and stuff, but I have been, as you would call, exploring a lot in the game and kind of going like to different areas and stuff like that, and kind of easily being distracted.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's from like how the game plays or how the game kind of does some other stuff I'm not supposed to do. I've had some kind of enjoyment either way. So I thought today, we kind of bring that up. I wanted to wait for a while for us to kind of get our hands wet into the game, play it a little bit, and kind of have some kind of thoughts and opinions. I know you've probably seen a ton of stuff. I know I've bothered you with a ton of memes and stuff like that because there are just so many of them flying around about this game, and some of them are pretty funny, and some of them are like, wow, they shipped this.
Oh,
So I thought today, let's talk about Pokemon. Let's talk about our feelings of how we felt the new Pokemon game kind of worked out, and did it kind of meet our expectation before? Pokemon is one of the first franchises we talked about on the podcasts and stuff, and we've had some complaints about it, especially for like Sword and Shield and kind of like the direction Game Freak and them go. And so now we're kind of let's talk about how they actually kind of addressed it, or if they didn't address it at all. What's your opinion so far?
I think they addressed a lot, and I think so far for me, their biggest issue has been performance-wise. But for me personally, I have not had much performance issues so far. I have only been playing in handheld mode, and I have my only the original Switch that came out on the day of when Switch was first released. So I'm playing on the OG one and everything, not the one with the new battery or anything, or the OLED. And in handheld mode, it's actually been really nice. I've had maybe a couple of moments where like the frames will get a little glitchy, but that's something I've also done when I'm playing like PC games, stuff like that. And I've had more glitches like that on PC games than I have so far on playing. I'm playing Scarlet right now, so but it's been pretty good. It's been pretty solid for me. Like I haven't had any weird things that pop up. I haven't had any like people walking through my battles or any of like the Pokemon that are the wild ones that like walking through or making things up. It's like no, I get into a battle if there's like a wild Pokemon around there, they're kind of just hanging out. It's like it's kind of looks like as if they're watching the battle, which is kind of cool. And then the game's been going good so far. You know what I mean? I'm digging it. How about you so far?
I'm kind of in like the same kind of mindset a little bit because I know I've seen a lot of the crazy stuff that's really happened for Pokemon and like some of the stuff, but most of it I find out that it's kind of more the multiplayer aspect of it than it really is like the game itself. Like there are some parts in the game by itself that are kind of like, yeah, like that's kind of weird. But for most of like the most egregious things, like I think I seen it when you're trying to get two people into a single game session. And then it just seems like the other person is doing some weird stuff, which, that's a lot. To me, that's a lot of server syncing issues, the way that I kind of see that. But like some of the issues that I've noticed, like just kind of like in the game itself on single player mode, is really like the frame rate is probably the biggest thing that you could tell right off the back. Like you
Yeah.
just look, 20 feet in one direction and somebody's moving like they're a 2D card, and then you get maybe like 5 feet and then they walk normal. And that to me, that just seems like more like a performance thing that they probably did that on purpose just to make everything kind of work rather than like do it like an optimized performance within the code itself. They just kind of said like, hey, well, I don't feel like this is really all that big of a deal. Like I think people get over it pretty quickly. And I kind of did. Like I just thought like, well, that's weird that they would go from like 30 frames to 5, but then back to 30 and stuff. But I'm like, I guess as long as the game doesn't crash, then I don't mind it too much. Now I did get a crash.
Did you? I was about to
Yeah,
ask.
I did get at least one crash where the game was like, "Hey, we're having a fun time," blah blah blah, black screen. It's like, and there's nothing really caused it. Like I know I saw you seen some people and they they may have like gone into like a weird like corner and stuff like that, and then stuff happened, or they might have did something like that. Mine was just kind of like we're just having a good time. I got to a certain place, and then the game just quit, which kind of reminds me more of some cyberpunk stuff.
Yeah, I had a just one crash, but I think it was one of those things because I just put it in sleep mode, and then when I went back to it, it had like an update to go into, and so I guess since it had to go into update going from a sleep mode, it just didn't kind of compute and it crashed on me because I didn't know there was an update to be installed. It just kind of turned the game on, it's about to play, and then it just kind of black screens, and I was like, oh, okay, restart the Switch, and it's like, oh, you want to update? It's like, oh, that's probably why it fucking crashed on me. So
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing in the world. And when it comes to like the frames per second thing, I mean, I'm one of those people who I know what the Switch is. I know where it's at in its lifespan because it's 7 years old now at this point.
Hmm.
Where like these games that are going to start coming out for it that are supposed to push their own limits in a sense, like they're going to start running a little bit harder. Not to say that they shouldn't fix that and stuff like that, but going in, I kind of knew that. It's like, all right, like this is going to happen. There's a possibility of this happening, especially if it's supposed to be an open world game, because the Switch's power and the way it's been made and stuff like that doesn't do well for open world stuff. And you see that a lot with a lot of the ports that come in, where they're like, oh yeah, I play like the people when The Witcher 3 came out and ported it in. They're like, oh yeah, play The Witcher 3 and it runs pretty well. It's like I have frame dips here and there, blah blah blah. And I kind of was like, yeah, I figured that because open world things are harder to do, and it interests me to kind of find out the technology of how doing open world on cartridges are now compared to discs, because those are these little small cartridges, and then you're downloading the extra components online. But I wonder if that may be one of those things that just doesn't kind of allow it to even perform even better.
Honestly, I just think that because when I see like the game as a whole, there's a lot of stuff I do like about it. I do think in a if I were to try and just hide all the bugs right now, that the game is fun to a certain extent. Like there's just a lot of stuff that you kind of want to do, and the game does kind of give you a good amount of freedom. It just kind of throws you out, and it gives you a stupid reason to put you in the world. But you know,
Yeah,
at the end of the day, it's like it kind of doesn't matter for most people. Most people would have just skipped the story anyway. But like most of the time, they're just kind of like, here we have some reason for you to go out and, you know, here's your study, travel the world, and be interesting for some reason. But you got to do something. Just come back and after you did something, kind of like a weird thing to say in a school environment.
oh yeah,
But
like one of the prompts that I just ran into recently was like, it's like, oh, have you learned a lot from your school? And it'll give you two options, and I was like, not really, because technically you're not really at the school for almost any time in this game.
yeah, and I know there's some stuff you have to go back to the school to do, but I just haven't really cared to try it once.
Yeah,
Like I just been literally riding the bike and kind of going literally everywhere over walls and see how I can get to places I'm not supposed to get to. That's kind of been my thing the entire time. It's just like, oh, how high can I get on this mountain? And then let me jump over and see if I actually get to it. Because there's sometimes I got to a new area and everybody was basically hulking me out. It was just all like, hey, I was just fighting people that were it's like level 12 and all of a sudden level 45. Just like what?
yeah,
It's all like, how is this cave even available to me? I just walked through the front door.
that happened to me, which I appreciate, you know, because it's one of those things where it makes it feel more open world in that sense, because you're like, all right, I'm just going to this random area, and it's like, oh, okay, I definitely went to a higher spot. I gotta go back.
Yeah.
Gotta take a step back.
Yeah. So in some cases, well, I won't say it's like more like an Elden Ring kind of case because everybody in Elden Ring is kind of hard, but it's more just like the world kind of let you know you're not supposed to be there, the best way kind of thing. So that I think that's probably the thing that I somewhat appreciate, to be quite honest. I know for like Scarlet and not Scarlet Violet, but Sword and Shield, the first open wild area, you had too many people of different variety of levels, and so it was really easy for you to be like, oh, I get to get, you know, a cool Pokemon or whatever, and then you realize they were like 4 times your level, and then the game said, oh, and you can't catch it either. So it's like, okay, well then I got to run away? It's like, nope, you're just gonna get punched. It's like you walked in here, now you're gonna walk out with a black eye. That's kind of how the game treated you. Now is I feel like the game's a little bit easier. Like, hey, we want you to kind of run around in the dirt a little bit longer and stuff, and give you kind of things to go out to do. But one thing I will kind of say, how would I say it? The game is really good at the whole exploration thing, but the game feels very MMO-ish a lot when you're in the open world. And maybe there's some stuff where I was like, oh, I like how the menu and UI of the game right now is pretty clean. It feels like really easy to work with. I love the fact that you just have access to the box rather than have to go to a Pokemon Center. I do think it's
Yeah,
funny, all the Pokemon Centers look like gas stations. It's just like, oh, that's kind of weird. But I like that the Pokemon stations work as flying points that you could just fly
yeah,
to, like in the different areas, and then that they still have some more other flying points you can't go to. I do appreciate that. Rather than like you can only fly to the cities and then kind of crawl down and stuff. So I do like that kind of stuff. But like gameplay, how the Pokemon look, how you battle, everything feels very MMO-ish. Like it just
yeah.
feels
I
like
feel
it's
that.
not as exciting, I guess, in my opinion. 'Cause
I could see that.
especially because I think the one of the way that they tried to optimize the best they could is like, why don't we just make all the Pokemon their actual size? And so we have a reason for them to be super tiny. And it's like, yeah, but I hate that because now I can't even see half of them. Like literally, I'll be right next to them, and then my face has to be on the screen because it's like, what is that? That is like that looks like a Pokemon that could be an Among Us or whatever, and it was literally just the texture.
Yeah,
Like it's so bad because I do run into the shading issue. I'm not sure if you running into it. Of it doesn't render the light all the time. So
I haven't
sometimes,
noticed. No.
yeah, like for me, like if you get into some of the caves, like the shadows will go in and out. Like it looked like everything's lit
Okay.
up, and then it looked like it actually supposed to be lit up the right way, and then go back. And I do get that issue. No.
I think the most weird thing where I kind of go, oh, okay, is the weathering and stuff like that, because like
Mhm.
there won't really be any like, all right, sunny day, whatever, blah blah. Then I go into a Pokemon battle, and then all of a sudden it's like raining, but then I'll use like my Psyduck that has like Cloud9, so it like makes the weather clear.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know it's not their ability; it's just raining, and then I get out of the fight, and it's like, okay, yeah, now it's raining. All right, well, guess it's raining, and then just keep walking around, go to another Pokemon, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's back to being sunny. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess it's supposed to be El Paso rain because it's gone already.
Yeah. Yeah, like weather and daytime cycles weird for me in this game because it's like it doesn't follow like real time. It's just kind
Yeah,
of like whatever we feel like it needs to be. Because yeah, like one time it rained and it just literally just clicked on like a switch. Like it didn't even
yeah,
like walk up to it. It's just like next, I'm walking and stuff, and then next frame everything changed. Like it was just kind of like that thing. Um, how do you feel that the game is kind of handling like a lot of the older novelty stuff, like gyms, the Team Rocket, Team Battle kind of shit, and everything else? Like, what's your opinion on that?
I'm enjoying it. Like, it's nice to be able to do this again because I really lost touch in it when they did the Sun and Moon aspect and they did like those little totems you had to go to fight and
Mhm.
stuff like that. And I remember playing through that and I was like, okay, this kind of isn't really cool and stuff like that. And then going to, I guess they kind of took like the Sword and Shield fight and then you have to do your challenge before you do the gym and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, cool. Like I appreciate that. Like it's a little cheesy and stuff like that. Like the first one I did was when you had to roll like the giant almond or whatever into a basket. And it's like, all right, cool, whatever. Like I had stumbled into that like before. I even knew it was like a challenge to do, and I just ran. I was like, oh no, something happens if I do this. And so I just did it on my own. And I was like, oh, okay, nothing happens. And
Mhm.
then find out, oh, I'm supposed to do it for this thing, and then it's like, oh, okay, this is. I get it though. It's simple and easy. The puzzles aren't too hard, and it's like this is for the most audience of this is to get young kids more into Pokemon that aren't already into it, and then get people like my son even more into Pokemon because it's like here, it's a little bit more challenging. You know what I mean? There's more story to it actually. Like at least they give you backgrounds and things like that between like the what is the Team Star or whatever. Then
Mhm.
you have the ancients to find the giant Pokemon, and then you have your normal gym battle things. And it's a nice tie. I did have to text my girlfriend because the girl that you meet in the beginning is just very, very, very much on you and wants to be your friend really, really hard and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, honey, there's this girl in the game, and she's really, really seems like she's into me. And I don't know how I feel about this. I just thought I'd let you know, because yeah, you're getting that. And I'm like, whoa, this is coming on strong. All right. What
Uh,
about you?
no, because that's been like the funniest part or whatever. It's just all like, yeah, this girl's like really on top of you. Just like, I am so interested into your future, and it's like, what the- and it's all like,
And at
yeah,
the
it's
same
like,
time, like, in the game, like you look like you might be a 10 to 12-year-old, and she looks like she's in high school, maybe about to graduate. You're like, are you supposed to be this into me right now? Like, I look like I'm supposed to be younger. What's going on here?
it's funny because it's like I don't like you don't mind it too much because like, it kind of plays in its own humor a little bit because
Yeah,
like everybody else is kind of like weirdly into you too, right? Like they in their own way. Like the more you play, because I know you haven't played like a lot of the gym battles and stuff, but like the more like gym badges you get, the more that it's like, hey, everybody else seems to be interested in me for some reason.
yeah.
Why? It's like it's just kind of like I'm a student of like what 150 probably. Like why everybody's like, so you want to be a Pokemon champion? What can we do about this? I can't wait to beat you up myself. Like, wait a minute. It's all like y'all are full-fledged adults. Like I'm way too small for this game. Like compared to everybody else. You got people like who are students that look like old men in this game. I'm not sure if you ran into like Pedro the student or whatever, but it was just kind of like, what's the age range of this school? But it's
Or
just
like
like,
you have the whole the principal or whatever acting as a student while you're
yeah.
doing the whole team star stuff. It's like,
Mhm.
bro, this is kind of awkward.
But like those moments they're fun in themselves. Like,
Yeah.
I do wish though, because I'm gonna have to bring it up again, because everybody else has brought it up. And I've not been the only person to now say it. I don't feel crazy about saying it. The game still needs voice acting. Like, especially for this game, it desperately needed it
Yeah.
because there was a lot. I mean, you do have a good connection, somewhat, of a lot of the characters, but it's still silent theater. It's still just people like mimicking stuff. So everybody, like, basically is making up in their own mind, like how Seth is, the champion girl is, or how everybody else kind of sees you and stuff. Everybody just kind of making up their own kind of image of it, and it's just kind of like, it just seemed like a wasted opportunity for something that I do feel like they could have done. Like at this point, I really just don't feel like they had any excuse not to do it. And the fact
Oh
that
yeah.
almost like what the number one IP in the world still can't get voice acting, like at least in Japanese at this point. If they were just talking in Japanese with English subtitles, I think most anime nerds would have been okay with that. But like, hey, just make that's cool for me. Like it works for me. I do that all the time. But like when you shared me that clip of someone doing it, and I'm like, yeah, that kind of it's that's such a simple thing to improve the quality of the game. And maybe I'm saying it's like simple, like it's just like kind of like a throwaway effort, but it's not. Like I do understand that there's probably some like there's some work that needs to go into it, but why not do it for your best game? Like I think my biggest gripe about Scarlet and Violet outside of the issues is that there's a lot of stuff that's holding it back from being like even considered game of the year. Like even if you were to
Absolutely.
like clear out the issues and there was no issues with the game at all, it still wouldn't be like the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild kind of,
Yep.
because the game itself is still not leaning into all the stuff that it's trying to introduce. Um but like stuff like voice acting, stuff like kind of like basic RPG stuff that like Xenoblade Chronicles did this year, it's really hard to be like, oh yeah, like how is Xenoblade Chronicles doing open world, all this motion, all this other jazz, big monsters, big mecha robots, and all other kind of shit. And then we can't do like that for Pokemon. We have to make the Pokemon almost like literally like 2 pixels on the screen. Some of them are just kind of like, yeah, I think it's cool, but it's just like it's weird. And then like when you get into a battle, you're literally like a full football field sometimes in between each other. Like for some reason,
Yeah,
it sets you like on one side of the other plane. It's like, yo, are we even having a battle or just long distance relationship? I don't get what's going on. I don't know, man.
yeah,
It's just like there are just some things where I'm all like, oh, that's just kind of weird.
yeah. This is where I think I really want to look, see if like I wonder why no one's ever tried to go deeper reporting, or maybe I just haven't seen any, because this is technically done by Game Freak, which isn't owned by Nintendo, and they don't own like the Pokemon license either. But it's definitely like a mixed relationship between the two that's deep within, and so Nintendo's usually pretty good about giving like freedom for their developers to do what they want for like this type of first party, in a sense thing. I don't know. It's kind of weird how the relationship is between these two, but I wonder if it's just Game Freak is just not really trying to, because they should totally do just the Persona effect, where Persona has voice acting, but they don't even have it even throughout the entire time. They have it just for specific moments of cutscenes, some parts in between. Like you still have the text bubble words pop up and everything like that. It's like, so you could do those aspects; those work perfectly fine. In a game like this, it's going to be a lot more accessible too for people to play and stuff like that, especially for younger kids, because I think a lot of younger kids are going to have a little bit harder of a mentality of finishing this game, because they just probably don't have the attention span to stick with reading through everything. You mean they want someone to talk to you, they want something to go that way, and here they have to read every single text. So it will. I don't know if Nintendo gives out that information and stuff like that, but it'd be interesting to see how much of like the game completion is actually been done in the game, because like that's where I find it interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, I will say this: like, they are definitely a guaranteed first party partner. Like, like Game Freak. Even if we say that Nintendo doesn't own them, which I would have to double check that, because I feel like they have full rights to that property and a lot of other stuff. I still feel that if Game Freak was like needed help, that they probably could ask for it. But I also think that there's like a few like things in my mind I could think is probably the issue. One could simply just be Game Freak is making a lot of games in a very short amount of time. And so like games like Scarlet and Violet, which we think is taking 3 years to make, maybe it takes one. Maybe they're doing it in one. Like the first trailer that you saw was like the tech demo. And then it's like, okay, now we got to build 90% of the game, but we have only a year to do it. That's one option. The second option is just the fact that, they are trying to basically dynamic or rapid prototype these games, but they're probably landing a lot of their help to everything else that's a Pokemon gaming title, which would be Pokemon Unite. Maybe they need to give some help to Pokemon Let's Go or whatever the other mobile game is. Maybe they have a lot of their stuff kind of split around, and then they just kind of have to like target all of this with a smaller team, because I don't think they really have a big team either over at Game Freak.
No, yeah, that's
Pokemon
for sure.
is literally their only title, but even then, it just seems like either Nintendo's strong arming a little bit to where they're like, hey, I need you to kind of work faster.
Things out.
Yeah, like you need to work faster, and we will not miss a launch date, because I don't think Nintendo really misses launch date for any of their games. Or it's just the fact of the matter is that they're not using their time well, because while they're not like there are a lot of more differences in this game than there was in the other game. Like you could definitely tell, like, oh, okay, well, they tried to do different texture maps on the Pokemon. They try to give them that quicker realism fur to their skin without actually doing like animated fur, because that would have killed the frame rate entirely. So I could see that happening in that aspect. And or they added this new mechanic for terrorize. That probably took a long time to kind of get done, get all the animation, get all the other color stuff. Like there's not a lot that the game has that I feel like could really have taken from their previous titles. At best, they probably would have took as much as they could from Legend of Arceus or whatever, to kind of make today's game. But then when did Legend like Arceus, when did that come out compared to this title?
Well, that came out this year, which I think is really interesting to see, because you had two kind of big Pokemon games, you know what I mean? Because this isn't like a Let's Go one where it's more small, chibi, easier to make. they made a full-fledged open world story and stuff with Arceus, and then the same year you come out with these two games. So that's a lot to bring out in just 1 year for Pokemon in general.
And so that's what I'm kind of talking about the time frame. Like the two games shouldn't come out the same year. One, because Legend of Arceus was a test to this new idea that you can do, like throwing stuff at Pokemon, battling them in the wild. All this was a test that they were testing in a game that we can kind of say wasn't really a main title, but it still kind of acted like it. It was still more of a spiritual successor to Sword and Shield. But it's just one of those things where it's like there's no way you could turn like a full product within a year's time and be like, we're gonna pump out like the best looking version that we can as possible. There's just not a lot of people can do that. And gaming, I think, is very notorious that you need to be spending more time developing these stuff further after kind of getting the initial feedback. Because I think everybody gave a good amount of feedback to Legend of Arceus, what they liked about it, what are the things that they felt like could have been improved. I mean, maybe they don't watch YouTube or anything, but it's not like YouTube didn't have this like round of like what people said and stuff, and Twitter the same way. But it's just one of those things where it's all like, you can't just look at the numbers of the game sold. You got to look at what people are saying about it, and then okay, maybe we can improve on that. To me, it sounds like they already had the game in development, and they just kind of did earlier build, which was Arceus, and then they did a later build that was like a little bit more improved with like new features that they were really working on. And that game, they're like, yeah, it will be fine. We'll make it work out and stuff like that. Because that's how I see it. Because the only thing else I could say is Game Freak just doesn't really do 3D well. That's the only way that's the only other way I could do it. They're just not good at this. Yeah. And people are telling them to be good, but they're not. Like they're a lot better at 2D sprites when it comes to like trying to do 3D optimizing, 3D worlds, 3D concepts. Like definitely 3D concepts. A lot of 3D concepts are missing. The camera should never blend into the ground. That is a very basic thing, and that really comes down to just collisions and stuff like that you should be able to kind of program into the game. Like you should be hitting that first as like really quick test stuff, but like that they couldn't do that. So it's like really kind of basic stuff that I really don't feel that they really hit at all really well, and I'm hoping they could do better, but now I'm not sure. Because it's like, oh, they did a full-fledged game that has a lot of rookie mistakes, and their way for solving it sounds like the way they would have solved it for a 2D game, but it just doesn't work well for a 3D game.
Yeah, it's like starting to think about it now. I wonder if Nintendo might have actually pushed this game to come out earlier, because originally it was supposed to be the new Zelda that was rumored to come out this year as their fall winter game, you know what I mean, like their holiday game. Mm-hmm. And then that got pushed back to next year, I think like in May. And so I wonder if they went to the Pokemon company just been like, hey, like we need a holiday game for this year, you know what I mean? So if we're gonna put out Pokemon, like this will put out Pokemon, that will be our game, that will, you know what I mean, that will move us forward and stuff like that into the quarter of next year, etc. and all that stuff. Like, because I don't know what other game they could have tried to put in place of Zelda to still sell like hotcakes, like how Pokemon does and stuff like that.
I think that's a pretty good assessment, quite honestly, because yeah, like it's hard because that means that they know that they need to make sure that they take time to do Zelda if it wasn't ready this year. And they weren't, but they also didn't really show off a lot about that game either. So I think they're probably in the clear. How they kind of do their quote unquote like trailers and stuff. I think they're pretty like, yeah, let's not go too crazy. Let's only show a little bit so that way we can flip the dates. But yeah, like we can't skip the biggest holiday event. Like something needs to come out. But then it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, but Pokemon would have sold anyway, unfortunately. And I think that's probably why they did it. It's like it would have sold 1 million copies without really trying. I just hate that like they do it for the game that's like clearly buggy. Like it's clearly needs some work, and it's like there's no way people didn't play it and had issues, because it's not like it's open world where 150 people in one space is.
Yeah, right.
At best is 4 people. At at most is 2, or at least is 2. So it's not like they had to worry about a lot of people in a single game session. And it just seemed like they were just messing up with just one-on-one. So it's just kind of like there's no way they tested this and they didn't see this. That's just how I
Yeah.
feel. Like it's a lot of this was a day one stuff.
And this is
And
also like I don't know if you saw, but like the Nintendo company actually came out saying like we've heard all your complaints, etc. for the going on with this game. We're working with the Pokemon company, etc. to make sure these things are fixed. And that I can't think of the last time Nintendo has actually publicly done something like that. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And so I wonder if that leads into kind of like the hey, we need to push this game out early, and then goes Game Freak's got like, hey, like cool, but it's not gonna be optimized. They're like, it's okay, we just need it, we know it'll sell, blah blah blah. I'm like, all right, cool. And then they get it, and then all this feedback comes back, and it overshadows the goodness of the game. Because I think this is actually a really, really good Pokemon game in the long run. Like Sword and Shield, I dropped off really, really fast on, and I tried my best to get into it. And this one, I'm in it. I'm like, okay, what am I doing right now? Oh, I'm just doing this. Cool. I can pick up my Switch, and I'm gonna play a 10-20 minutes. Last night, right before bed, I was like, I could play a little bit, and end up playing like an extra hour before I actually fell asleep. And that usually something I don't do with games in general, especially when it comes to the Switch part of it. And I was like, oh, like I feel it. I want to play it. It's in the back of my mind. At the moment, I'm just having the battle between wanting to play Vampire Survivors or this.
And that's what does get me, because I do have to admit that I do want and like playing the Pokemon game.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just you can definitely tell like I'm trying to shift, playing my gacha game that's been holding me for so long, and then being like, okay, I just want to finish the daily so I can get back to Pokemon. Like there's definitely like a big change on how I feel about the game, because there is a lot of times where I just want to play, I want to keep catching stuff. Like you can actually catch Eevee in the evolutions in this game, so you don't necessarily have to use the stones, and you're like, oh, I could do that. Oh, I could get this. Oh, I could get that Pokemon that I needed both versions of the old game. Let me go after that. And then like you get into a new area and you're like, oh, there's so much stuff I want to try and do, and there's more Pokemon to catch. And so you just kind of go on this endless cycle, and you realize, hey, this is kind of all I really wanted. Like this is this is fun in itself. And like we kind of said, like this more just the freedom of like you don't have to go to the badges, or you don't have to do the Titans and stuff like that. Like you can, because if you, like I said, if you do the Titans, you get to explore more. So that was actually one of the first things that I completed, was that, oh, I can jump, glide, and do all this other stuff if I just keep fighting the Titans. I kind of put that in my priority because I want to be able to experience more of the game. So,
Right.
And I do like that, and I feel like the game really accomplished that, and I just hate that gets really shadowed by some of the other stuff that they were trying to do that they probably didn't really need to. Like there's just some stuff they could have just copied from Sword and Shield that I feel like would have been just easier to do, at least for the moment, and then been like, okay, then we can make like a better Ultimate game, like Scarlet and Violet 2. They could have made something that could have landed on that, but
Yeah.
there are just some things where I feel like it's overshadowed. Personally, I don't like the terrorize thing, the terror.
I don't even use it.
I kind of hate it because like it messes you up a little bit, because you're like, oh, I gotta fight this Pokemon, but their complete type changed, and you're like, oh, I brought the wrong guy to kind of deal with this. And then like you also want to get them too, because it's like, oh, it's cool to kind of get like Charizard that's actually a dragon. That's pretty dope. But like I also hate it because it's like, but this feels more like a gimmick than Dynamaxing.
Yeah.
At least Dynamaxing made it look like two Godzilla characters fighting each other and doing big like slaps. Like just cartoonish earthquake. Cartoonish, I'll throw a building at you. Now it's just kind of like I wear the crown of earth. Come at me. It's like like my what was it, that fire ghost Pokemon that everybody kind of wanted with the two swords at hands. I actually caught him really early as a ground type terrorite. So I'm like, yes, I have all these powers and I'm earth now. I have no earth moves, so I can't take advantage of this at all. It's like yeah, like that kind of has a point. Like the TMs make I do like that they kind of give a little more fidelity to the TMs at that point.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, but did I really need this? Like, I'm more excited that they've actually give more evolutions to a lot of the Pokemon and different types than I care about changing the types that I have.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. On the TM aspect, though, I'm actually really liking the TM part of it and stuff like that. And because I don't know if I'm too excited about the like using the Pokemon items you get or stuff like that, those resources to build them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't gotten too deep into actually making the TM stuff like that. So I'm like, how much am I gonna have to grind to get that one TM that I need because I need that one certain Pokemon's fur and stuff like that. So I haven't looked too far deep into that part of it, but it makes it a lot easier for me to see which TMs I do want to get and which ones I want to use. Because like, oh, all these Pokemon can use this one. Okay, I'll just use this one. And they did a really nice layout for it and everything, how it sets up. And so it makes me want to actually use TMs more. Because 9 times out of 10, when I play Pokemon, I hold on to like almost all of them and just hardly ever use them.
Yeah. And even though I do appreciate that TMs got so much better after the years, because remember they were only one-time use and gold, red and blue, to now like you can just use them as many times you want. To the fact that they finally got rid of HMs, it's like, you know what, I think we've finally grown up. We don't need any HMs no more. Like, it's not like it made the game easier. It's just like, yeah, well, it just kind of sucked to teach a Pokemon cut.
Yeah.
And then like they could learn Slash instead. Like, it's just like, you don't have like a TM or HM, whatever they called them at the time. It's just, you don't have like something that's like, oh, now we have to dedicate time to do this. Now it's like, yeah, we just got rid of that. Even flying's done with. We just now give you a taxi. That like stuff like that is cool. And then it helps focus more on the TM aspect, and which I like it because it kind of replaces the grocery list of quests that other open world games have you do, because now you can focus on something that's a clear benefit. You know what the clear benefit is. There's no voice acting, no story, or nothing like that. It's just like, hey, do you want to learn these cool moves for your Pokemon? Well, you got to go hunt down the stuff for it, and then literally go to any Pokemon Center and start making. Like, it's a really easy like this concept, but it has a really quick reward to it. But that's another reason why I explore a lot, because I could just find the TM like in the wild. Like,
Yeah.
I found Confuse Ray. I didn't even know this was a TM at one point.
Right.
So like that's why they really give you a lot of opportunity to keep exploring, and which is something I really appreciate. Like they have a lot of reason to get you to go out there and just keep being out there for long periods of time. I wish they fixed the money issue though. Like, I really do feel like I should be getting more money. Like, and I was so glad that I found the amulet coin at one point. Or I think there was one time where I was like, where is the amulet coin? And it was like, oh, you need to go here and do this. And I went immediately there because I need cash. I was like, no, like the amulet coin is what is like a life or death situation, especially if you like catching, because Pokeballs and all those other things cost so much after a while. And you're like, oh, I need money. So like, you could just go out and go do the quest. You don't need to be at a certain, well, technically, being a certain level is a suggestion the more that you play the game. But it's more like you know what you need to do, and you're not stopgate to go do it. It's just like, yeah, just go do it.
I do like how, as I've been going like rummaging through the world and stuff like that, it's more of a challenge to level up your Pokemon, and I appreciate that because there's so much diversity on the field and stuff like that of different types of Pokemon and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it kind of go like, all right, cool. Like, I'll go run. I'm gonna train my fire Pokemon, so I'll go run out to an area, go and stuff like that, and then you start running into small areas where you get water Pokemon popping up just here and there. And you're like, oh shoot, like I don't want to do that. Or a ground Pokemon pops up. You're like, oh, okay, that's a weakness, so I don't want to fight that one because I'm trying to make it easy for myself to level them up and stuff like that. And so it makes it a little bit harder. It gives you a little bit more of a challenge to be like, all right, I want to level up this Pokemon. What's the best way to go about it and stuff like that? It's been kind of cool. It's made the game feel harder for me, because usually I just kind of, all right, go to one area, keep leveling up, move on, beat what I need to beat there, level up, move on. You know what I mean? And this one I'm just more like, okay, move around here. Oh, my Lechonk just passed, just faded, switch out to another one. Okay, oh nope, that the move they have for that one works better. Okay, all right, they're both low. I don't want to use these potions. Got to fly to the Pokemon Center. Let's let's redo this.
I do try to stretch out as much as possible before I go back to a Pokemon Center. Like it's like I'll have to find some way to kind of keep out there. I just hate that. Like I know there's a lot of points in the game where I got wrecked because like the Pokemon was way too high level. Like and I just didn't know about it until you actually fought it. Like I got there's a Garchomp. I forgot what his Terra type was, but I was like, oh, there's a Garchomp just walking around chilling. I was like, oh, I can use the Garchomp. Everything around here is level 30. I go up to it, level 65. Just kind of like, yeah, you went into the wrong fight, boy. And and then it's like, then of course, if he has that Terra type, you're like, I forgot what Terra type it was, but it was like, oh shit, it was hard for me to deal with at the moment. And so it's stuff like that where it's all like, oh, I almost got decimated, like all my team, like I'm all like revive.
Yeah,
escape, you can't escape. You can't escape. I forgot. I forget that I had like the Poke Dolls that you could use to escape, and I'm sitting there like, please let me go. Nay. It's like you will stay. You will take this fight, and then I can't just catch them. I definitely it's like well, maybe I just random Pokeball. Maybe it'll work. It's like nope, it's still terrorized. You can't do anything until you break that. And it's like, yeah. There's some times where I get wrecked, but like I will say, I do like the games because in some cases it's really easy to level up if you have the strong type. Because literally you could just have your Pokemon without even getting into the battle, just go beat them up, and they'll just go done. Next one, done. And it's just like because if you have like the grass starter and you just in a bunch of row of Psyducks, you're just like, oh, y'all about to die. You just like you don't even bother to kind of go in and hit the button. At this point, it's just going like go. You know, you're just kind of setting off little assassins at this point. I think that's probably the one thing I like about the whole Team Star thing, where it's just like, oh, go beat up 30 people.
Yeah,
okay, cool. And then especially when you get like your little like bigger Pokemon, like Tinkaton is one of my favorite Pokemon right now in this game. And just seeing that thing just walk around with a big hammer, start swinging at things at different sizes. Yeah. It's just too funny to see it like live action, kind of just like, yeah, I'm just gonna slap the out of you, boy. So there are some parts where it's just kind of just funny to see it.
Yeah.
You know? So there are sometimes, yeah, it could be really hard to level up because it's like you're just outclassed. And it's not just about a few levels, it's by literally a generation of levels. And then there are just sometimes where it's just kind of like, oh, fire beats grass and everything here is grass. I'm gonna have fun.
Yep. That's me, especially I ran into like a spot that had a lot of like those Skiddos, the little like kind of like the grass like goat ram looking ones, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the first time I did, I was like, oh, okay, like they're a little bit tougher. And then I chose a few Coco as my starter. And so I went into it like, oh, sweet, I heard of him. He's fire. Let's go in. And then they have.
Did get the fire?
Oh yeah, he's my boy.
I thought you were getting Weed Cat.
No. I had to go with the dumb boy. Once I saw a video of him like, in my game he like burns up the apple and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, you're my boy. You're an idiot. Let's do this. But
I probably would have got him if I did not see his final evolution. That's the only thing that kind of really stopped me. Like, I'll go back for him, but it was really hard for me to start him. I was like, nah, I told myself I'll get Weed Cat. I don't get a lot of grass starters when I play Pokemon, so I was like, oh, I'll do it for this one.
Yeah, I didn't do Weed Cat because Litten is my boy. Litten will always be my cat Pokemon, my number one, and so like, I just can't do it, especially since he turns into a wrestler, and you know, I am one of those people who's a dummy who loves wrestling, and it's like it's a match made ahead, and I have a black cat. It's an adorable black cat. I love fire Pokemon. It's a fire Pokemon. It turned into a wrestler.
I did send you that meme about the two Pokemon, Litten and the other one.
Yeah.
Like, how high are you? This.
But
the best thing that this game is memes.
No, dude, the memes are so good for this game. It's great. But yeah, it's nice. Like I ran into those pack of Skittles going back on track, and I realized, oh man, they have a lot of like health and stuff like that. So it takes a few extra hits to go through them, but I get like a dose of extra XP and stuff like that. I was like, heck yeah, now I got him leveled up higher than the rest real quick that way.
Yeah.
And then I have the Firebird Pokemon. I think it's that type of Turtwig. It's one of the newer ones. I don't know if it's from Sword and Shield or right before Sword and Shield.
Are you talking about like the regular Firebird?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, because I know there's like a few there, and because I have like the little like kind of like dancing Firebird kind of thing, but you're probably talking about the Talonflame one.
Yeah, I have that one. That's the first so far like really flyer I want to have on my team, just to have a flying type. And it's like, all right, cool. So now I just switched out to him, and then just start wrecking it with those Skittles of that one, because it's like, all right, cool, let's do this. And then it's like, all right, these guys are leveling up good, but now I gotta level up my Psyduck, and he's gonna get destroyed here.
Mhm.
So it's really nice.
I do find it. I'm not sure if you had a problem. I do find it hard to build a team of like particular Pokemon because I want to pick all new ones, but then there are just some that are like the game is not supposed to give you Gardevoir. It's really hard to say no to Ralts if you can actually acquire it, and it's like, oh, I get a level 30, I already have Gardevoir. It's kind of hard to say no to a Psychic Fairy type. You know, it's like like I wanted to try all the other psychics, like the psychic flying ones and stuff. I was like, oh, that bird probably like a different change of a change of pace and stuff. Because I still don't have a flying type on my team. Like it just kind of like there's a lot of them, but they're like, they don't look as cool. Or like, hey, I'm not really buying them. More like I had them like Talonflame, Star Raptor. Like they were already broken in their own generation. So it was kind of like, well, I already know what the fire type is gonna be, and he's gonna be the like the knight or whatever. So it's like try to get the Firebird is kind of like double dipping at this point. It's like it doesn't really work when you're trying to play the game for long term. But everything else is just kind of like they're just some because there's some Pokemon I'm like, oh, I want this one, but it looks so ugly. Like I really don't want to deal with it because some of them are like, I really like Tinkaton. Like I said, is like one of the most interesting looking Pokemon that they have for like the new generation. And it's like I went to go find the starter for that one. I was like, no, I want this one on my team. It's very metal. Yes, I want this. But everything else, I was just kind of like, besides like the double flame ghost guy, like I'm not sure what else I would want. I almost was just kind of like, man, maybe I could just find someone to just give me all the starters, because I think that'd just probably be better. Because like the fire starter is like a ghost fire, like hell yeah, that's dope. Ghost fire is dope. You can pretty much just walk all over the normal gym. But that was just kind of what I thought. I was like, like I don't know who else I really want to pick, because everybody else is kind of like it's interesting.
I think that's why I'm kind of struggling, because I'm trying to do that. And so I have the starter, and then I have the Lechonk that it already evolved, and I'm like, oh, okay, it just stays as normal, and that's it. It doesn't have a third evolution, so it's like, all right, let's see how well this works out with stat wise in the long run. Yeah. And then I have the little bug Pokemon you get. It's kind of like the Caterpie version or Weedle version, and I think I have it a second evolution right now, and I'm like, okay, this is a little bit of a struggle. You know what I mean? It's the spider with the big little cocoon in its head, and now it's like kind of like stick spider. I'm like, okay, it leveled up. It's a little bit stronger, but it's still kind of weak. Hopefully there's gonna be a payoff. I'm hoping. I don't know, but I could just go and get this one right over here. That's just there, and I'm like, ooh, I want that Pokemon instead. I'm like, but nope. Trying to control myself. Trying to see this out.
Yeah, like I said, it's hard because some of them are just terrible. Some of them just look bad when you actually when you look at their front evolutions. So I mean, there's a lot of them that like they don't look great, but you're like, oh, but I like kind of what they do, so I deal with it. Like I think the most disappointing one for me is the electric type, the electric fighting.
Just that one.
It's like the new Pikachu looking guy, and literally his evolutions all look the same. Like they're very similar to each other. And then like the last evolution you can only get after you walked 1,000 feet, and then I think it then evolve it, I believe, or level it up. But you have to actually have it walk 1,000 feet. And by God, this was the most frustrating thing, because this thing could not keep up with you walking. And I was just like, oh, so like if you walk too far, it'll teleport back into the Pokeball. And I was like, oh, I hate this. Like, it's like like catch up little thing, but then it's like just this little thing with like little dangling arms. But then like when it evolves, you're just like, this is the most not great thing I've seen. Like the only good thing about it is that it has a move called Revival Blessing that actually awakens up a KO'd Pokemon. But it only does it one time and then that's it. Like that's just, it only has a move of one PowerPoint and that's it. It's just like, but it's like everything else is just like, oh, but it's electric fighting. It should be dope. But it doesn't look like it could punch his way out of a paper bag. But it learns close combat, and we're like, well, that's good. But then it's like, I get like it doesn't look exciting. Like when you kind of look at it, just like,
Yeah.
like yeah, I guess like I like the memes for it, like, oh, I'll kill you and then I'll revive you back kind of thing. But that's as far as it goes, and then everything else just doesn't look impressive. I just feel like they like the new Pokemon, they have like maybe like funny names that kind of go with like certain play words and stuff, but as far as like the creativity, I just don't really feel like it's there. And I feel like they rely way too much on old favorite type of Pokemon.
I think of it kind of the opposite way. I think they did a lot more with the creativity and design of them. I just don't think they knocked it out of the park. Or it's like, okay, that's interesting and different, but I don't know if that's in a cool way or a good way. You know what I mean? At least to me, it's just like, all right, yeah, I see where you're going with here, but I was hoping it could be something better and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like that's how I feel with it. At so far, it's just like, all right, it's all right. I see what you did, but okay.
yeah, and I guess I could say that it's just like you said, Lechonk or whatever. Like you just kind of get this pig, which is basically Zigzagoon, just walking around the place. That's basically what he replaces. Like, I just got a normal Pokemon that's just normal, and for some reason, every region in this world has one, and then you could even catch the male one, you can catch the female one, and I feel like the Pokemon itself is a meme because of just how it looks. But then it's just kind of like, but most people don't really go for normal types. Like it's just one of those things where, like, they're already not exciting for like a lot of different cases. But like when you're trying to play the rest of the game and you're thinking like, oh, I'm gonna find the next Lucario, and what you find is, oh, why don't you just get Lucario? Like I was able to get a Lucario with a Terra type ice. Like, yeah, why don't I just do that? Yeah, that's it. That makes more sense to me. I caught him at level 75 at this point. Let him, wreak havoc. But it's just kind of like, well, I want a Pokemon that's like that. That is cool. That's not the starters. But the starters are cool to a certain extent. But even some of them are like, their ideas could have been better. Like WeCast Final Evolution Masquerade. Like I like it because it actually has a decent moveset. But then I'm like, I can see why some people might be like tired of it. But then when I look at like the water Final Evolution, and it's like, is this just a dancing flamingo and they just slap fighting on it? It's all like, yeah, we gave him fighting because he needs to be able to fight against Weak Cat. And it's like, yeah, but it's like the way that they made him look is like, it's just like, I was expecting a little bit more. I was expecting more JoJo, less, like just go all the way flamboyant kind of thing. And then the fire one, he's an alligator. They just like, he went from 2 legs to just now crawling.
Yeah. And then kind of not even quite the alligator because you have the ground alligator that's been infamous and super dope. Like that one's awesome, and then it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, like you got like some Pokemon. Yeah, you got some Pokemon that just kind of fit the bill at that point. So that's why I felt like even for like flying types, it's like, oh, I want to try the new flying, but then you got all these other they bring all the old good ones, and it's like, well, it's hard to say no to Talonflame. It's hard to say no to Staraptor can learn close combat, and it's not even a fighting type. It's just, yeah, I'm like, what? And now that's a normal Pokemon I want. Like it's just kind of like one of those things, and it's like, there are something where I'm just like, I just wish the creativity. I guess for me, it's still kind of the creativity because it's like I'm still waiting to kind of do more stuff, and I think they're just having a hard time because it's like we can't go too extravagant to where it's Digimon, but we also have to kind of play with words a little bit more to kind of like get new ideas. And I just you kind of see it like oh, like how many new Pokemon there actually are, and then like how many like returning Pokemon have come back just to fill up the Pokédex.
Right.
Yeah.
It's I kind of want to take it. Oh, I want to find out get a new lens through it, so that just because it's us old guys in a sense, like playing this game. And so
Hmm.
my son has the game, and I need to check up. I'll see him tomorrow, and I'll see. I want to see how far he's gotten because when I last time checked up, he was already a little bit further than I was at there, but still in the beginning. And I want to see how he feels about him since he's not extremely familiar with Pokemon in a sense. Like he's played through all the Sword and Shield and stuff like that, but like his idea of like how we are with generations is not in his
Hmm.
mindset. And so
Yeah.
I want to see like as he's playing it, like, oh, what Pokemon are you choosing? Oh, I'm just choosing this one because it looks cool or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'll have to see him play it.
I will say like if Scarlet and Violet was your first Pokemon, then like everything's gravy at this point. All our complaints are not really justified.
Yeah,
But it's just kind of like I guess it is like we just had the old man lens, and we're just kind of like the first section of the game had like 30% new Pokemon and 70% like old favorites. Like I said, like I'm all like I know it's like weird to say it, but like the only Pikachu you should get is the one they give you for like the event at the very beginning. Play the game and you get Pikachu that has the flying turret type. That should be the only time you should get Pikachu
yeah,
in my mind, because that makes more sense. Like Pikachu's a favorite, but they're like as long as there was a guaranteed way for everybody to get it, and you could still get it in the other games. It's not like you can't just port over Pikachu and Pokemon Home. Like it's like we can break off for that. Let's find new favorites that people can like, and I think like this is where the anime kind of shines because the anime does kind of show off some of the coolness of some Pokemon. Like Samurott, like I didn't think he was good at all until like I actually saw him in the show, and I'm like, oh, that makes more sense. You got a samurai looking otter. I like that. Before it just looked like he was just like, I have a horn. So sometimes you just need a little bit more visual aspect, but like now that we're in a 3D game and Pokemon are moving and stuff like that, you just think that the game itself will translate like why you should care about this.
yeah. I'm interested to see the updates they actually start coming out with after the whole Nintendo statement and stuff like that, and see if it really does run better, run smoother and stuff like that. Because seeing, I didn't play them, but seeing like video footages of like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 playing and even Bayonetta 3 playing, like you see a good aspect of like how these games actually still look pretty good compared to how Pokemon is running. And I hope they actually do work on it, and I hope you do get to a point where like it's just a lot less framey and stuff like that, and it's just you get to really see it shine in a sense.
Yeah.
Because this game is fun. I mean, like we've been talking about it for over an hour, and there's still so much more that we haven't even touched on to, gotten into, and stuff like that. And you know what I mean? It's the story so far is actually pretty fun. I'm actually interested in it, which is kind of new for a Pokemon game for me. It's kind of just like, oh, Pokemon, yeah, throw it off to the side. Just go through the game and just do our thing. But this was like, oh no, I'm actually interested in it and stuff like that. I want to see how it goes. I do want to be the champ in this one. Like I had that feeling like I do want to be the champ. Like I want to get in a fight with this girl who is a little too coming on to me and stuff like that, but I want to mess her up in this game and just be like, yeah, take it. That's right, my Pokemon. Gotcha.
Oh god. I will say that's probably one of the better things about the game. Is just like you actually like the rival. Like even though she seemed to like you a little bit too much, you're like, I don't know. I guess I just don't mind this as much. Like there's just a lot of people that seem like, okay, this one gives good vibes. Versus like I did feel like the last like shortest shields rival in that game. I don't know why. I just didn't like him as much. Like, and I know they try to give him like actual like, oh well, he can feel pain, he can do all this stuff. But it's like, yeah, but it all feels fake. This girl comes off as Goku, just all like, hey, I just want to fight. And it's all like, but honestly, I don't want to fight you because I hate you. Let's just do it. Fighting's just great. He is all like, let's let Pokemon fight. We just need to do that. Trust me, everything will be better if we just fought.
Let's do this technically animal abuse, but in our world, it's not animal abuse. It's fun.
It's all new, right? But jokes aside, but it's just like you do like a lot of the kind of stuff that kind of come off. You're like, oh, this is nice. I do like how they play around with it. And again, I just hate that a lot of it's just foreshadowed or overshadowed, really, because there's just so many problems with the game. Like you want to do things with your friend. Like basically, if you play the game with your friends, that's where the problems really introduced. Like outside of the frame stuff and stuff. And I know like there's a lot of PC players that are like, oh, I can't believe the game's not at 60 frames. Oh, I can't believe the game's not doing this and stuff. But I mean, me and you talked about it before. Like I can care less about the frame rate of the game. I just care can the game play, and that's where we get to have the problem. Is like I like the game, I just don't like how the game is operating. It could run 30 frames per second. I don't really care. Like as long as it runs it well, that's all I care about. It's a Switch. It's a handheld running off little batteries, And I got the like shit. I got the old one too. I haven't got the OLED one, but the OLED one doesn't really have that much of a better battery. If anything, the
Mhm.
battery gets shot because they gave it OLED screen. So there's nothing that could really help it in that aspect. But I think it's like what people said too is like, oh, might as well just port it to the Steam Deck if you really care about doing the 60 frames per second mod and all that, or at least you want the game to run a little bit better, then yeah, you could do that. But the Switch just doesn't really have a lot going for it. I'll be honest. But it doesn't excuse the way that Game Freak treated the game either.
Yeah.
So it's like it's really two problems at this point. Because like I said, Xenoblade Chronicles look really good this year. Bayonetta looks good. Like just got games that they just been developing while, and you could see the proof, and you're just kind of like, oh, surely the best title in gaming, or not even the best title, like the most profitable title in gaming right now, can reach new heights. And you're realizing like, yeah, it seemed like the game was made with a lot of interns.
I wonder if like because they've already done this, like they wouldn't let Legend of Zelda or Mario come out like this, and so I wonder if it's really more to me, not more. I wonder if it's a thing that because this game is technically supposed to be towards kids, preteens, and maybe even teens, that's a little bit reaching it for like the group aspect that the general audience is for. They kind of go, okay, like you don't have to do all this optimization on it and stuff like that.
The problem I have with that is I think we give it too much of an excuse to say, okay, this is made for kids, so we can excuse a lot more. But there's a lot of concept in Pokemon that kids will not be aware of. Like a first time player of Pokemon, there's just so much about move sets, how catching works, what things kind of work better than other. Like typing is one thing, but there are also just a lot of other aspects to how moves work, speed, how stats work, how do you actually work on the best stats of your Pokemon. There's a lot of stuff that the game will not tell you. It's not that, to me, the game isn't really that user friendly in a lot of aspects, because it's not going to sit down and be like, okay, son, we're going to teach you about EV and IV values. We're going to teach you, hey, you need to fight 30 Pidgeys at a time, before you fight anything else. We're going to teach you all this other stuff. Like the game doesn't really introduce you to, like, I don't want to say basic mechanics, but mechanics that actually matter. Because a lot of times your starters are already like max everything. Like they're at the part where they need to be in some cases, but they don't teach you how to take advantage of it. And so you kind of just take moves that you like that do damage, and you kind of work at it. So that's what, like, while they made everything else super simple, like I think the gym trials are just trivial. I just kind of like, you can't fail these. Like you just really can't. Like you could stand still and probably pass. It's just one of those things where it's like they're so comically bad and easy that it's just kind of like, yeah, kids, unless they're just insulting kids, there's just no way. Like I can't just say this is for kids. Like I just feel like they have to be literally getting somebody that doesn't have object permanence. Like that's the only way they can fail at these. But I do feel like by saying they're trying to make this game for kids, then it's like we excuse a lot of stuff, but then we have to also look at it. There's a lot of stuff that the game doesn't do that's actually good for kids. Like if there were at least if they felt like there were a lot more hand holding, that I can understand. But most of the people that would probably enjoy Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are people who at least played the last two generations of Pokemon, who've like seen how like the tournaments work and see how like high gameplay works and see how all this other stuff works. It's just, to me, it's not the best new friendly game still.
Yeah, for sure.
And they're not doing the best job to actually grab new people, especially without voice acting. You know, it's just like, oh, I got to read in this game. I don't want to read. I want to play. Oh, it's turn-based style playing. Oh, but that's long. Like, it's not Fortnite kind of excitement for most people. And I mean, thank God you don't have to buy stuff like in Fortnite, but it's not like Fortnite, like, let me get into it, get it done, and get on to the next match. It's a game for exploration. It's a game about how to be a Pokemon master or stop a team or literally fly and glide across the whole world. Like, it's for those type of people. And I just feel like those people are in the older generation gap. Like, there are 16 plus people. That's just kind of how I feel, because we don't need that much hand holding. We just go do the do. We might learn some new stuff, but the only thing that we had to learn was how the terror types work. How does like catching a terror type with your homies work? It's like, that's all we had to care. And then next, you know, we were up to speed. We went on, did our thing. It's like, hey, stop talking. I want to go do stuff now. But it's just, for me, it doesn't work well for newcomers.
I feel that. But if you also look into like when we played like Red and Blue and stuff like that, it was a similar aspect. At that time, that was like a game where you just went and explored and did your thing, and there wasn't too much hand holding at that point either. You know what I mean? And then the deeper aspect of the game, you kind of find out later on, whether it's through blog posts and stuff like that, or it's like, oh, there's a tournament, and then you start researching about the tournaments, and then, oh wait, but you actually have to do this and that, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's still kind of in the same basis as that. Like, it's just modernized for maybe today's kids in a sense, stuff like that. But it's, to me, so has that same feeling where it's like, it doesn't hold your hand and stuff like that, but at the same time, it kind of still does. Like, every time I've been going to a Pokemon Center, it still goes, did you know about this? And it's like, yeah, you told me that like 20 minutes ago. Remember? Like,
yeah. I will say that. I will say I forgot when that stopped for me. But my counter argument to that is the games were linear. You only had one direction. You all like, you're in Pallet Town. There's only one exit. And at that point, you didn't know you could swim. So trying to get into the water wasn't a concept. You literally had to just go up. And I feel like the games back then were like, yeah, like if you have one path, you can't get lost. You might get confused, disarray, but there's one entrance and one exit. And the games just kind of continue like that. And it does help you get more excited when you get to a new area. But there's only one way out of it. So it's like, to me, it's like, yeah, it's just kind of like a playground. Like, you know, there's only one way to get out, one way to get in. And so that probably didn't need to be explained as much. But I mean, it's like, yeah, like I think that was something that we could figure out because they set the stage to do that. But do you feel like they did it in this game as much? Like, set the stage for that? Yeah, like there's joy reminds you of stuff.
I think so, because just think about the games that kids are playing nowadays on their own and stuff like that. Like, watching my nephew, my son, his friends, and other kids around the age a little bit younger here and there, like going into Roblox and just play kind of games that don't hold your hand for anything, but they're figuring it out and understanding it really easily. Like, I go into watch, but what are you playing? Oh, it's this game. Well, how do you play it? It's like, oh, well, you're supposed to do this to this, but we just found out about this because this is how we died and this and stuff like that. So their concept of gaming and stuff like that is at a higher level than I would say we even were during our time and stuff like that. And it's just because of the access of things like Roblox, Minecraft, and just the access of free-to-play games in general. So, you know what I mean? These kids were the term of iPad babies in a sense, you know what I mean? Had tablets, stuff like that already. And so if for this to be an open world game, for me, it's still a lot more hand-holdy than it needs to be. And I understand why it's like that, because you're trying to get those kids into it. And I could see how they can probably get this concept easier.
That's a good counter argument. I'll give you that. But I guess, like, for me, like, Roblox is a game of multiple games. Like, there isn't like a single thing about it. So it's just kind of like, well, you're a guy walking around, and that's pretty much the basic gameplay until someone makes like a mod for it. Then you do extra stuff. But like
Right.
Minecraft is different because Minecraft is a game they just throw you in, like figure it out, you know, find all the cool stuff and all that. Look at the guys, da da da. Like that makes more sense because I mean that's the purpose of the game is not to know and then find
Great.
out.
Yeah.
It's like go find out. It's like so I understand. I guess I understand that part a little bit. It's just in Minecraft there isn't like a hidden value score system that you're like impervious to, and the game won't tell you about it. Yeah, there's just some stuff that the game just won't tell you about in Pokemon.
Right.
Like they made a mechanic like thing in the earlier games where you had to go talk to somebody about what your IV values were, or like do like a little mini game to get them up instead of just telling you straight up, hey, your IV values are this. Which I wish I did just do. Like I hate like trying to be creative with it. Just tell me,
Yeah.
like, hey, where am I at? So I just know instead of like me like writing down like I don't want to have to pull out a notepad to figure it out. It's just like just tell me. Just quit playing around, basically.
Have the calculator on my phone for IVs while I'm playing the game or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's all like
Yeah.
I now understand, and maybe some people will say, well, that's post game. Like you should really only care about that if it's really like a post game thing. You're trying to do all this other stuff. Like, sure, but then like you get into like shiny hunting and you get into all these other stuff that you do just say, yeah, like I just need to go ask somebody to spend more time on that because again, the game's not going to tell you how to best get shinies. They just kind of make it sound like, oh, it's basically a walking gotcha game. You may get one, you may not. They don't tell you like, oh no, there's a very particular way you got to do it to actually make them come out more. And so like, yeah, like again, like the game doesn't really set you up for that. It just says go do it. I believe in you. So I mean those things are like I feel like they're kind of good arguments against and good arguments for it. I don't feel like Pokemon will ever change that stuff. I just kind of feel that I think Pokemon is more hitting like an age 16 range, where it's like, okay, there are some advanced concepts in here that if they really love the game, they'll go find out for it. But the gameplay and stuff itself is very simplistic. Anybody can really play and enjoy it.
Right.
Like that.
That's where I see. That's where I can see where in this game particularly, the not enough development time to get the perfect ratio between these is where the issue happens in this game, because you're trying to reach the hardcore with everything that we know and we just talked about, to the 16-year-olds who could start dabbling into that, and like teenagers, stuff like that, to the young kids that is kind of your main audience because you want them to watch the TV show, you want them to start getting into the card game, you want them to start buying all the merch and stuff like that. And so like since there was not this was definitely rushed, you could tell this was rushed and stuff like that. We can we can just kind of you could tell that it's just they didn't have enough time to figure that out, or at least to smooth it over to make it easier and stuff like that.
So kind of like big points about the game. So what is like your overall feeling of Scarlet and Violet? Now been in your hands for 2 weeks. I'm not sure like how much you play of the game. I know for me it's really like around this time and later when I'll actually start playing it for the day. Because during the day working and stuff, it's not a game that I can kind of sneak in and do because I might get too sucked into it. But it's one of those things where like I have to wait till the day plays out before I kind of give it my attention. But I've played it a good amount.
I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I want to I know I already have friends way past where I'm at and stuff like that, and so I want to get to a point where I'm I at least get to being the very best that I can in the game wise, stuff like that, and then start talking to them and start wanting to trade and everything like that and stuff like that. That way I get a good aspect of the game, because I know I'm not going to finish everything too compared to how far they are, stuff like that. And few of my friends are very deep into like shiny hunting and things like that and stuff, so I want to start seeing what they have, seeing what I can get from them and stuff like that, because I already have 3 shinies of this one and stuff like that, you know what I mean? And so I'm gonna finish this game. Like I love it. I really do love it. It's fun to play. It definitely has its issues, but I'm having more fun with the game than the issues are an issue for me, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I will agree. Like maybe because me and you are single player people, and like everything else is kind of like candy, like with the multiplayer stuff. Because me and you need to get together. I need to get with you so I can evolve my dolphin, Because
Yeah.
I found out you have to do that by actually being in another person's game and then leveling it up, which is like that's insanely stupid. Why did you make me do that? But it's like whatever. It's like, but now that I actually have friends, I actually do play it. Like I need to kind of jump into that circle. I did see. It's funny. I saw on Facebook Marketplace people selling the starters or selling shinies and stuff. Hey, I'll get you, I'll sell it to you. And I was like, the funny part is like one of them I did consider. I was just like, I could lose $1. I'm like, I'll cry if I gave someone $1. But I was like,
That's bad.
no, that's just like the principle of that. It's just, it's like, yeah, I could just like, but it's like too because it's like, well, I have both games. Like it just popped the other one in if I was really desperate enough. But it's just kind of like it just feel weird to me. It's like, oh, there's nothing I would do it. It's not like it's shameful. It just feels disgusting. But it's just
Yeah.
kind of funny in that aspect. It's like, oh, like you do need to play. I don't like one. I wish they had more wonder trading or other trade kind of aspects because I hate the fact that I can't just say I'm looking for this and then see if anybody would provide it. Like it's just wonder trading, or like you have to actually link with somebody. But since you can't talk to them, it makes it really kind of difficult because
Yeah.
you can't really tell them what you want, or at least I'm doing it wrong. Probably doing it wrong, but like you can't really tell them what you are doing wrong. You can only just put up, like, hey, I have this. Would you like it or not? Kind of thing.
Yeah. I'll get my homies Bobby and Gus their friend codes because I didn't get it for myself personally.
Mhm.
I'll pass them down to you too and everything because they're the ones that are like hardcore shiny hunters and they kind of play the games religiously in a sense. You know what I mean? Like they're obsessed with Pokemon, and so anything you could possibly want, they could probably get it for you or help you to get to yourself.
Yeah, so I think to start a Facebook Messenger live for that, that's probably the best for us.
That's a good
for as
idea,
far as
yeah.
communication. Because if you start a Discord for that, that's it's gonna get lost. I finally found a way to control my Discord messages and stuff like that, and so I don't want to put another one and be like, and we're talking way too much between each other and stuff like that.
I think they use Facebook Messenger more anyway, so they're not like me and you in the Discord world.
Mhm. Yeah, good old Facebook Messenger, the one thing that I like that Facebook has done outside of the marketplace. But I think for me, I do agree. Like, I am enjoying playing the game. I will admit that because I was afraid that it wasn't. Because like you said too, Sword and Shield really put a pause on me for playing Pokemon. Like I came back to it and I did enjoy kind of after the fact, kind of giving it some time, but it really didn't vibe well with me how the game played out. Versus now, it's like, okay, I feel like there are some things that really do shine from the game. And while I hate that all the Pokemon are a few centimeters in size, um, at least I can kind of work out, feel like, okay, but this allowed me to play an open world Pokemon game. Like the towns are very simplistic in most cases. This stuff, so it's like, oh, this doesn't really feel like a town. It just feels like a bigger gas station. They all feel like Bucky's gas stations, just like kind of
Yeah.
all over the place and stuff. Just like, oh yeah, there's a town that has all this stuff, but for some reason they have 2 sock stores, and it's like, why do you have different sock stores? Just have a clothing store. So I could do like, why did you separate them? Like,
Why can't
that's annoying.
why can't we change our uniform?
I didn't even know you could change the uniform, and then I had to find out. Oh, press left on the directional button to change to your different uniforms. And I was like, what?
And even then, it's just like summer, winter type of versions. Yeah.
Yeah, but at least I was able to get out of boy shorts. Like I was just kind of like, oh, like I have all this stuff going on, and like I hate everything about it. Like I need pants. And it's just like I just hated having to kind of deal with a lot of the other stuff, and then it was just like, really, it was just a button. It was like I was like, why is it not in the menu screen? Like normally they have it in 2 places: the menu screen or a quick action button. I'm sitting there just kind of like, oh, this is stupid. And then like, oh Jesus Christ! Like it's like I've been going back in there now. Like, Finally, I look like a respectable person who's still shorter than my rival. It's like, and mostly everybody else. Like, there's very few people that are shorter than you in this game. It's like,
Yeah,
they give you height customization.
it's it's really weird. I wish you could like just do a full clothing thing, but for some reason they really went hard on like the school aspect of this game,
Mhm.
and it's like okay, I get what you're going for, but you're like the baby version of Persona right now, and okay,
Mhm. Well, I say like I would have rather be able to do outfits because one thing I did like about Sword and Shield is kind of like some of the outfits do change a little bit
yeah.
later on, but like they had like the artist outfits in this one, like the tattoo artist. I'm like, I want that mask, I want that outfit. That looks dope. Why you gotta be? What is this? Is all like who walks around in the middle of the desert in their school uniform? I don't get this.
For real. At least, why am I in a snowy area? At least let me put a hoodie on, man. It's cold.
Yeah, even Persona changes out of clothes here and there. Like, oh, we're outside of school. Let's wear normal stuff. Stylized shirts. Let's put a button up. I don't know.
Even Ash in the animes would freaking wear different clothes for different environments, even though he had some of the same colors at least. You know what I mean? It's like, come on,
Yeah.
guys.
Well, like Ash didn't know school existed. He was one of those people like, oh shit, there was a school for Pokemon. Why would you do that? That seems weird.
He came from a small town. You know, it happens. He was homeschooled.
Homeschool, and they kicked him out of the house. It was like, hey, go do some shit. And it's all like, but I don't know anything, not even taxes. Like, you don't have to worry about that. Trust me. You just beat up other kids, and you'll get paid that way. It's like, so that's kind of like my feelings on it. Like, there is a lot about it. I do have to recognize the faults. I do have to recognize a lot of the problems with it because they are very, very apparent. You know, it just shows that like, wow, I could definitely at least say that while they had the concept, they were really bad at executing. Like, it's very different from Cyberpunk, where Cyberpunk graphics had a lot of the other stuff. It's just the project itself was too large, and only some computers could run it at its best. But even then, it was kind of faulty because the project itself was just that much of like a bigger issue and stuff. So they ran into stuff that's very common for making like a big city environment versus Pokemon has 5 buildings for a city and can't get people to walk correctly. You know, it's just it's really hard, you know, to kind of give Pokemon a lot of credit for anything because it just, or like at least Game Freak in this case, because it just feels like they just shoot themselves in the foot a lot. And so I at least can agree on that. It's like I do have to admit that a lot of people are like, yeah, they really do hate that, like, oh, like this game's just so poorly made and blah blah blah. But it's fun. I will say that the game is fun. And once you kind of not do multiplayer stuff, kind of run into less issues, less noodle people and bikes disappearing. You know, it's sad that I have to say, well, just discontinue a whole game and you're fine. But you know, or like a whole mechanic, just erase the whole mechanic of the game's, you know, working. But I mean, it's that's the reality of it. It's the extra stuff that break Pokemon, not necessarily like the concept of Pokemon itself.
Yeah, the initial gameplay of this game is really good, and it's just that all the added stuff they added on top of it is what really brings it down. We were like, I see where you're going with it, and you didn't get there, and that sucks.
Yeah. But I think that's really all. I mean, I could talk more about the game for sure, but it's one of those things where it's like I'll probably, when I finish it, I could probably say a little bit more concrete thing.
Oh yeah.
But I think we've kind of bashed on it enough. Like, there's probably more things I want to do, and kind of I want to kind of start going back to playing it now.
It's like, oh, my Switch is right here. Just let them start playing while we're talking.
I did hunt this down.
Where'd you get that?
Didn't know that these were going to be in the States. You have to go to Target. Your Target is the one that gave this out for the pre-order.
Okay.
So I didn't know all the stores themselves had different pre-orders.
Wait, so how'd you get it? If you got yours at GameStop?
I mean, I showed proof that I had gotten the game. I didn't have a receipt, but I just said, "Look, I made a whole thing about it on my phone." It's not easy when you have like proof that you did buy the double pack, right? And the girl was like, "That looks good to me. Here you go." But I had to hunt it down because like some people only had like 6, and so they were gone. And some people were like, "Yeah, we had a lot, but we were giving out to everybody who bought the game, so you didn't have to buy the double pack." Which, when I looked up online, it said you had to buy the double pack to get it. But I just say go to your Target that's near you and see if they have some. I know you got like a few of them near you, and see if they just have it on standby. Because I was just like, what? Why didn't they give that to everybody? Like, why was only one store and then the other stores got digital discounts? Like, the best thing I got from GameStop was 100 Pokeballs. Now they came in handy, but it's like you could have gave me something else. This is memorable. I could put this in the game room.
That's adorable. Yeah. Oh man, that's my train of thought.
Yeah, that was too dope. I know.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I know. Actually, I need to go to the local anime shop Rogato. He got some little things in. I gotta check them out. I'd be down to have. If I could find a little few Coco, that'd be dope.
Is he doing good?
Yeah, he's doing real good. Yeah, the shop's doing really, really good. So
I have not been to Robogato in a good minute. Only because every time I go, he's closed or like something. He's not working at the times, or I miss him in particular. The main owner.
The thing is, he like last time I talked to him, he doesn't really go in anymore. He has like his homie who pretty much runs the shop, who's there running the shop, stuff like that, and he does all like the operation side of it and stuff at this point.
He still doesn't have an online store, does he?
No, I don't think he ever is either.
Yeah, I still think he's not gonna do it. And I talked to him about it, but I understand. Like when he explained to me, like, okay, I understand. Like the market that you're in is a little bit harder to work with to do an online store. But I'm all like, well, but the gun stores seem to be selling a lot of kits.
Yeah.
Every time I see them, they got warehouses of kits and they sell out.
Yeah, he's doing good. The store looks really, really nice too. Like up to date some stuff, and it looks well stocked all the time now. So it's cool.
Far East Side, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Right where I live, so
yeah, I'll try again the next time I actually go back to El Paso. But with that, man, I think we have bashed on it and enjoyed it enough. I guess final thoughts are, I enjoyed the game. I just wish they shipped it the same quality that I was expecting a game.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because this podcast about the game is exactly what you feel when you're playing the game, where there's a lot of things you could bash on it, but there's so much good at the same time. And so, like, depending what part you're in it as you're playing it to what part you might be going through this podcast, just kind of like, oh yeah, they're bashing on it. Oh wait, but they're talking about it good now. And the same thing in the game, you're like, oh, this is fun. It's like, oh, okay, see what you're doing.
Yep, and I think that's a good note to stop, kind of kill it off with it. So, allow me to address chat in the crowd. Everybody, thank you for watching today's episode. If you like this episode, go ahead and please subscribe to the channel. I need more subscribers. We've been doing shorts and stuff, and shorts are fine, they're fun, blah blah blah, but I want more people here in the actual episode. Have some kind of discussions and stuff like that, because I think that's really fun. I do want to hear more people's opinions about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I don't know why I keep mixing them up, but I do want to hear more people's opinions about the game. I want to hear your opinion in particular. And if you are watching this after the fact, still leave a comment. We're all reading them. We're all getting up to date about them. We really do appreciate you spending your time. And of course, if you didn't miss it, we'll be back here on Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So good old times for everybody. But again, my name is Deshaun Williams. This is Christopher Moncada. Thank you for watching and listening to Gaming Over 30 today, and we will see you next time.